Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Wisdom Channel. Tonight, we are drifting into the quiet depths of Zen, a tradition that speaks in whispers rather than shouts, that points toward stillness rather than explaining it. These teachings emerge from centuries of people sitting quietly, watching their breath, noticing what remains when the noise falls away. They are not rules to follow, but invitations to see differently, to find peace not by chasing it, but by recognizing it was never truly lost. There is something grounding about this approach, the idea that wisdom does not require more knowledge, but perhaps less grasping, less resistance to what already is. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Let your shoulders drop and your breathing slow. Allow your eyes to grow heavy and let the concerns of the day fade as your mind unwinds and we drift together into this peaceful tradition. There is nowhere else you need to be, nothing you need to remember, only this quiet exploration of teachings that have helped millions find rest within themselves. Let's begin. Zen means meditation in Japanese. The word itself is simple, borrowed from the Chinese chan, which came from the Sanskrit dhyana, all pointing toward the same quiet practice of sitting still and turning attention inward. Over centuries, this single syllable traveled across languages and cultures, carried by monks who valued the practice enough to preserve it through translation and transmission. The name became shorter as it moved east, as if each culture trimmed away what was unnecessary until only the essential remained. What matters is not the etymology, but the fact that countless generations agreed this practice deserved a name, that sitting in silence was significant enough to be named, taught, and passed down like a treasured family recipe. Zen emerged from Buddhism in China during the 6th century. When Buddhism arrived from India, it met Chinese Taoism and Confucianism, and something new grew from that meeting, like a plant grafted onto different soil producing fruit with a distinct flavor. The Indian emphasis on scriptures and philosophy blended with Chinese appreciation for naturalness and simplicity, creating a tradition that valued direct experience over intellectual understanding. This happened gradually, quietly, as teachers adapted foreign teachings to local sensibilities, finding ways to express ancient wisdom in language and practices that resonated with people who had never seen the Ganges or the Himalayas. What emerged was not a rejection of Buddhism, but a distillation, a version that felt both deeply rooted and freshly planted. Sitting meditation is the core practice. In Zen temples and practice centers, people sit facing walls or in circles, hands resting in their laps, eyes slightly open, simply being present with breath and body. This is called zazen, which translates to seated meditation, though the simplicity of the name hides the depth of what can unfold during those still minutes. The practice does not require belief in anything except the willingness to sit, to stay, to notice what arises without immediately responding. Over time, what seems like doing nothing reveals itself as the most honest kind of doing, a practice that strips away the habitual reaching and reacting that fills ordinary life. The cushion becomes a laboratory where you observe the mind's patterns without the usual distractions to hide behind. Breath awareness anchors the wandering mind. When you sit in meditation, the mind does not suddenly become peaceful. It reveals how restless it already was, jumping from thought to memory, to plan, to worry like a monkey swinging through branches. Bringing attention to the breath offers something simple to return to, not as a way to stop thoughts, but as a way to notice when you have drifted and gently come back. The breath is always happening, always available, always here in this moment, which makes it a perfect anchor for a mind that constantly wants to be somewhere else. This is not about breathing in a special way, but simply noticing the breathing that is already occurring, feeling the rise and fall of the belly or the coolness at the nostrils. Over time, this returning becomes less effortful, more natural, like learning to balance on a bicycle. Posture shapes inner stillness. Zen teachers emphasize sitting with a straight spine, not rigid but upright, as if the body itself is expressing wakefulness and dignity. The head balances gently, chin slightly tucked, shoulders relaxed but not slumped, hands forming a particular mudra in the lap where the thumbs touch lightly. This posture is not arbitrary. It reflects an understanding that how you hold your body influences the quality of your attention, that slouching or rigidity in the physical form can mirror or create mental states. When the body sits with stable ease, the mind has less to complain about, fewer sensations demanding immediate adjustment. The outer form supports the inner work, creating conditions where stillness can naturally settle like sediment, drifting to the bottom of a clear pond. The present moment is the only real moment. Past exists only as memory, future only as imagination. Yet the mind spends most of its energy in those two directions, rehearsing what happened or worrying about what might come. Zen practice repeatedly invites attention back to what is actually here now: the feeling of breath, the sound of rain, the texture of the floor beneath you. This is not a philosophical position, but a practical observation. You cannot directly experience anything except the present. Everything else is thought about the present. Recognizing this shifts how you relate to time, reducing the urgency to fix the past or control the future, because those projects depend on leaving now, and leaving now means missing the only moment you actually have. This is where peace lives, not in some future achievement, but in present acceptance. Thoughts are like clouds passing through sky. When you sit in meditation, thoughts appear, some pleasant, some difficult, some neutral and random. Zen teaches you do not need to fight them or follow them. You can watch them the way you watch weather moving across the sky. The sky does not grab clouds or push them away. It simply allows them to move through. And in the same way, the mind can learn to let thoughts arise and dissolve without turning each one into a project. This changes your relationship with thinking, loosening the belief that every thought requires your participation and agreement. Over time, the mind begins to feel more spacious, less crowded by the constant narration it generates. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear, and that awareness remains steady, like sky, regardless of what passes through it. Non-attachment means gentle letting go. This teaching is often misunderstood as not caring, but it actually means caring without clinging, enjoying without demanding permanence. When you practice non-attachment, you can appreciate a flower without needing to pick it, love someone without needing to possess them, enjoy a meal without already planning the next one. The suffering comes not from desire itself, but from the grasping that follows desire, the insistence that things must be a certain way or last forever. Zen practice helps you notice the moment when appreciation turns into grasping, when you go from, "This is nice," to, "I must have this always." And in noticing that shift, you create the possibility of softening it. This is not about becoming passive or indifferent. It is about holding things lightly enough that when they change, as everything does, you are not shattered by the loss. Beginner's mind sees everything freshly. After you have done something many times, the mind creates shortcuts, stops paying full attention, assumes it knows what will happen. Zen teachers speak of Shoshin, the mind that approaches each moment as if for the first time, even when repeating familiar activities. When you drink tea with beginner's mind, you actually taste it rather than drinking from habit. When you listen to someone with beginner's mind, you hear what they are actually saying rather than what you expect them to say. This freshness is always available because each moment actually is new. The tea is different. The person may have changed, you have changed. But habitual mind overlays past experience onto present reality and misses what is actually here. Cultivating beginner's mind means questioning your assumptions, staying curious, admitting you might not know as much as you think you do. Silence holds more than words can carry. Zen values silence not as absence, but as presence, the space where deeper understanding can emerge. In many spiritual traditions, teachers talk extensively, but Zen masters are famous for saying very little, sometimes answering questions with silence or a gesture rather than explanation. This is not because they are withholding knowledge, but because some things cannot be transmitted through language. They must be directly experienced. Silence in meditation is not empty time. It is full with the sounds usually ignored, the sensations usually overlooked, the thoughts usually drowned out by noise. When you sit quietly for long enough, you discover that silence is actually quite loud, filled with the hum of existence itself. Words can point toward truth, but silence can hold it. And sometimes the most powerful teachings happen in the spaces between words. Walking meditation turns movement into practice. Sitting is not the only way to meditate, though it receives the most attention. In Zen practice, there is also kinhin, slow formal walking, where each step is taken with full awareness, heel touching ground, weight shifting, foot lifting, all performed with the same careful attention given to breath during seated meditation. This practice shows that meditation is not about a particular posture, but about quality of attention, that you can bring the same presence to movement as to stillness. Between long periods of sitting, practitioners walk in a line, circling the meditation hall at a pace so slow it challenges balance and demands focus. This is not walking to get somewhere. It is walking to walk, each step complete in itself. It also reminds the body that stillness and movement are not opposites, but different expressions of the same aware presence. Tea ceremony embodies mindful presence. The Japanese tea ceremony, chado, grew deeply intertwined with Zen, becoming a practice where every gesture is performed with complete attention. The host prepares tea, following precise movements refined over centuries, each action deliberate and clean, nothing wasted or hurried. Guests receive the tea with equal formality, bowing, rotating the cup, appreciating its form before drinking. This is not about tea as beverage, but tea as practice, a way to bring the same quality of presence cultivated in meditation into ordinary activity. The ceremony creates a container where time slows, where beauty is noticed in simple things, where host and guest meet in shared awareness. It demonstrates that enlightenment is not separate from daily life but discovered within it, that making and drinking tea can be as sacred as any religious ritual when performed with full attention. Bowing is not submission, but recognition. In Zen practice, people bow frequently to teachers, to the meditation cushion, to each other, to the Buddha statue not as worship, but as acknowledgement. Each bow recognizes something worthy of respect: the teacher's dedication, the cushion's support, the Buddha nature in another person, the potential for awakening represented by the statue. This physical gesture helps soften the ego, the part of you that wants to stand apart and above, that resists acknowledging in anything greater than itself. When you bow, you are not diminishing yourself, but recognizing your place in something larger, expressing gratitude and humility. The bow becomes a practice of letting go, a moment where the body demonstrates what the mind is learning about non-attachment and interdependence. It is a gesture that says, "I see you," and "thank you," and we are connected without needing words. The cushion is not a throne, but a quiet seat. When approaching the meditation cushion, practitioners bow to it before sitting, recognizing it as the place where practice happens. The cushion holds you upright, supports your sitting, witnesses your struggle and your settling. It is not elevated or special in itself, it is simply a tool, yet treating it with respect reflects the Zen understanding that practice infuses ordinary objects with significance. The cushion represents your commitment, the fact that you showed up again, sat down again, returned to practice despite the mind's resistance. Over time, your cushion becomes familiar, shaped by your body, carrying the memory of countless sessions. This relationship with a simple object teaches something about how presence transforms things, how attention makes the ordinary extraordinary, not by changing what something is, but by fully seeing it. Counting breaths steadies scattered attention. For beginners, the instruction to just sit can feel overwhelming, the mind too chaotic to rest without some structure. One traditional method is counting exhalations from 1 to 10, then starting over, using the count as an anchor for attention. This gives the mind something to do, a simple task that requires just enough focus to notice when you have drifted. Inevitably, you lose count. Find yourself at 15, or realize you forgot what number comes next, and in that moment, you see how quickly attention wanders. Rather than judging this, you simply return to 1 and begin again. The counting is not the goal, it is a training aid, like training wheels on a bicycle. Useful at first, then discarded when balance comes naturally. What remains is the ability to notice wandering and return over and over with gentle patience. Morning practice meets the day before busyness. Many Zen practitioners sit early, before dawn, when the world is quiet and the mind has not yet fully engaged with the day's demands. This timing is not accidental. It sets a tone, establishes stillness before noise arrives. When you begin the day with meditation, you are less likely to be swept immediately into reactivity. You carry some of that settled quality into the first hours. The morning mind is also different, not yet fully armored by plans and worries, sometimes more receptive to silence. There is something powerful about rising before you must, choosing to sit rather than rushing immediately into tasks. It says that this practice matters, that you are willing to sacrifice sleep or convenience to maintain this relationship with stillness. The morning session becomes the foundation on which the rest of the day is built. the bell signals transitions, not interruptions. In Zen practice spaces, bells mark the beginning and end of meditation periods, and practitioners are taught to let the sound fully complete before moving. The bell is not just a timer, it is itself an object of meditation, its tone gradually fading into silence, teaching impermanence in a single sound. When the bell rings to end a sitting period, you do not immediately jump up. You listen to the sound decay. Notice the silence that follows, then move slowly. This trains attention to transitions, the moments between activities that ordinary life usually rushes through. The bell also becomes a teacher of presence, a sound that calls you back to now, if the mind has drifted into planning or remembering. In some temples, every sound is treated this way. Even mundane bells and clappers become reminders to return attention to the present moment. Sitting through discomfort reveals impermanence. When you sit still for extended periods, the body inevitably complains. Knees ache, back tightens, an itch demands scratching. The instruction is usually to stay still unless pain becomes severe, to observe discomfort rather than immediately responding to it. This is not masochism, but investigation. You are learning that sensations arise, intensify, change, and often dissolve without requiring action. The itch that felt unbearable a minute ago may have vanished on its own. The ache that seemed permanent shifts and softens. This direct experience of impermanence at the physical level helps you understand it at other levels, recognizing that emotional pain and difficult thoughts also change when given space, rather than immediate reaction. Sitting through discomfort builds tolerance for difficulty, showing you that you are stronger and more patient than habitual reactions suggest. Regular practice matters more than perfect sessions. There is no such thing as a perfect meditation session. Some sits feel clear and peaceful, others are restless and difficult. But Zen teaches that showing up consistently is what transforms. It is better to sit for 10 minutes every day than to sit for an hour once a month. The practice works through repetition, through returning again and again, regardless of how it feels. This is where discipline and compassion meet. You maintain the commitment to practice while accepting that each session will be different. Some days the mind settles quickly, other days it never settles at all, but both kinds of sessions are practice. The transformation happens not in any single sitting, but in the accumulated effect of thousands of sittings, the slow reshaping of habitual patterns through patient repetition. The cushion does not judge your performance. It simply receives you each time you return. Every breath is a complete beginning. Zen practice emphasizes that you do not need to carry the last breath into this one, or this one into the next. Each inhalation and exhalation is complete in itself, a full cycle of receiving and releasing. This means you always have the opportunity to start fresh, to let go of the last moment, and meet this moment without the baggage of what came before. If your mind wandered for the past 20 breaths, the next breath is still available as a fresh start. This teaching applies beyond meditation, offering a way to move through life without accumulating regret and resentment, without letting past mistakes define present possibilities. The breath is always happening in present tense, always offering the invitation to begin again. And in that constant renewal is the possibility of change, no matter how stuck or lost you feel. Emptiness is fullness without clutter. The concept of emptiness in Zen does not mean nothing exists, but that things exist without the fixed, separate identity we usually assign them. When you look at a tree and see tree, you are seeing a label more than the actual changing collection of processes. Water rising through roots, leaves converting sunlight, wood slowly growing and eventually decaying. Emptiness points to the lack of permanent essence, the fact that everything is constantly changing, interdependent, lacking the solid, separate self we imagine. This is not depressing, but liberating, because it means nothing is stuck. Everything is fluid and workable. When you see emptiness, you also see fullness, the incredible richness of each moment when not reduced to concepts and categories. The mind that grasps emptiness paradoxically becomes full of wonder, because it stops filtering reality through expectations and simply receives what appears. Not knowing is most intimate. Zen values the state of not knowing, not as ignorance, but as openness, the space before conclusions harden. When you admit you do not know, you become available to learn, to see freshly, to be surprised by what actually is rather than what you assume. This is particularly powerful in relationships where knowing someone can mean you stop actually seeing them, interacting instead with your fixed ideas about who they are. Not knowing creates intimacy because you meet the person directly, rather than through the filter of accumulated judgments. In meditation, not knowing means you do not approach each session with expectations about how it should go. You simply sit and discover what this particular sitting reveals. Teachers sometimes answer questions with, "I don't know," not because they lack understanding, but because knowing too much can close the door that not knowing holds open. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. This famous line from the Heart Sutra captures a central Zen teaching about the relationship between appearance and essence. Form refers to all the particular things we see and experience, trees and cars and bodies and thoughts, while emptiness points to their lack of permanent, separate existence. The teaching says these are not two different things, but two ways of seeing the same reality. That the solid forms we perceive are empty of fixed essence, and that emptiness manifests as all these changing forms. You cannot have one without the other. Emptiness is not somewhere else beyond form. It is the true nature of form itself. This understanding shifts how you relate to the world, seeing both the unique, particular expression of each thing and the fluid, interconnected emptiness that allows it to exist. The flower is completely itself and completely empty, both at once, and seeing this is seeing things as they are. Koans are questions without logical answers. A koan is a teaching story or question given to students to work with in meditation, designed to frustrate logical thinking and point toward direct insight. Famous examples include, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" or "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" These are not riddles with clever solutions, but barriers to conceptual mind, questions that cannot be resolved through thinking. When you work with a koan, you bring it into meditation, hold it in awareness, let it work on you rather than trying to figure it out. The mind exhausts itself trying to solve the unsolvable, and in that exhaustion sometimes breaks through to a different way of knowing. Koans also function as tests. When a student presents their understanding to a teacher, the teacher can tell whether the insight is genuine or merely intellectual. The point is not to accumulate correct answers, but to taste directly the reality the koan points toward. What is the sound of one hand clapping? This koan, attributed to Hakuin, is perhaps the most famous in the West, used to illustrate how Zen questions confound ordinary logic. Two hands clapping makes a sound everyone recognizes, but one hand cannot clap in the conventional sense. So what is being asked? The question is designed to stop conceptual thinking, to push the student beyond the realm where problems are solved through analysis. Different students have presented different responses, some gestural, some verbal, some silent, and teachers respond based on whether the answer demonstrates genuine insight or clever thinking. The koan is not about the hand at all, but about the nature of duality and non-duality, about what exists before division into pairs. Working with this koan can take months or years, sitting with the question until something shifts in how you perceive, until the answer is not thought but lived. Mu means no thing and everything. In the koan tradition, particularly Rinzai Zen, many students begin with the Mu koan, a question about whether a dog has Buddha nature. When asked, Master Zhaozhou answered Mu, which literally means no or nothing. But the student must discover what this no points toward. Mu becomes the entire universe for the practitioner, not a word to understand, but a reality to embody, repeated in meditation until it fills awareness completely. The teaching is that Buddha nature is not something possessed or lacked, not something that can be affirmed or denied in ordinary terms. Mu dissolves the question itself, showing that the categories has and has not do not apply to fundamental nature. When the student breaks through the Mu barrier, they understand not intellectually but directly, and this understanding changes how they see everything. Mu becomes the first taste of reality, beyond conceptual division. The gateless gate has no door to pass through. This phrase comes from a famous koan collection, pointing to another paradox in Zen, that the barrier to enlightenment is not a real obstacle, but an imagined one. There is nowhere to go, because you are already where you need to be. Nothing to pass through, because separation is illusion. The gateless gate represents the mind's tendency to create problems that do not exist, to imagine walls where there is only open space. When you finally understand, you realize you were never outside. The gate was a dream, and what you sought was never hidden. This teaching can frustrate, because it seems to say the whole project is unnecessary, and in a sense it is. Yet the paradox holds that practice is necessary precisely to realize its unnecessity. You must approach the gate earnestly to discover it was never there. And in that discovery, the search ends not through arrival, but through recognition that you were never truly lost. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. This saying captures the Zen emphasis on ordinary activity as the location of practice, not separate from it. The full version continues, after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, suggesting that awakening does not transport you to some transcendent realm, but returns you to ordinary life, transformed not in content but in understanding. The tasks remain the same. Wood still needs chopping, water still needs carrying, but the relationship to those tasks changes when they are met with full presence. Enlightenment is not escape from the world, but intimate engagement with it, discovering the sacred within the mundane rather than seeking it somewhere else. This teaching challenges romantic ideas about spiritual achievement. The notion that awakening brings special powers or exempts you from daily responsibilities. The awakened person still washes dishes and sweeps floors, but does so with complete attention, without the resistance and resentment that make ordinary tasks burdensome. Ordinary mind is the way. When asked about the essence of Zen, one master responded, "Ordinary mind is the way," pointing to the fact that awakening is not a special altered state, but the natural, unforced awareness you already possess. Ordinary mind does not mean the cluttered, distracted state most people experience, but the simple, direct awareness before complications arise, before you add layers of judgment and interpretation. This mind does not try to be spiritual or enlightened. It simply meets each moment as it is, responding appropriately without self-consciousness. The teaching suggests that rather than acquiring something extraordinary, practice reveals the extraordinary nature of what is already ordinary. When you are hungry, you eat. When tired, you sleep. When rain falls, you hear it. And in that direct simplicity, without elaboration or hesitation, is the way. The difficulty is that this simplicity is obscured by the very effort to find it. So the practice becomes one of subtraction rather than addition, letting go rather than gaining. The finger pointing at moon is not the moon. This teaching addresses the relationship between words and reality, between teachings and truth. All the words spoken in Zen halls, all the instructions and koans and sutras are fingers pointing toward truth, but not truth itself. And the danger is mistaking the pointing for what it points toward. You can study Buddhist philosophy for decades and never taste what the words describe, just as you can read endless descriptions of chocolate without knowing its flavor. Zen emphasizes direct experience over intellectual understanding, encouraging students to look where the finger points rather than analyzing the finger. This is why Zen is sometimes called a transmission outside scriptures, not because texts are worthless, but because they are preparatory, meant to guide you toward direct seeing. The moon represents reality itself, the actual lived experience of awakening, and no amount of beautiful language can substitute for turning your gaze toward that reality and seeing it yourself. Words cannot hold what practice reveals. Language is a useful tool, but a limited one, particularly when pointing toward experiences that transcend conceptual thinking. Zen teachers often seem cryptic or paradoxical because they are trying to use words to point beyond words, like drawing a map of silence. The deepest insights of practice are not beliefs you can state, but transformations in how you perceive and relate to existence. You cannot explain the taste of salt to someone who has never tasted it. You can only encourage them to taste it themselves. This is why Zen places such emphasis on practice, on actually sitting, actually working with koans, actually bringing full attention to ordinary activities. The understanding that arises is intimate and personal, not something borrowed from books or teachers. Words can inspire, guide, and point, but they cannot deliver the insight itself. That must come through your own direct encounter with reality during meditation and daily life. Sudden awakening follows gradual cultivation. This teaching addresses an old debate in Zen between sudden and gradual enlightenment. Some lineages emphasize that awakening happens in a flash, a sudden complete realization that changes everything. Others stress gradual development, the slow accumulation of insight through years of practice. The resolution suggests both are true, that sudden awakening is possible, but usually only after gradual cultivation has prepared the ground. It is like a fruit that ripens slowly over time, then suddenly falls from the tree. The falling is sudden, but the ripening was gradual. Practice creates conditions where insight can occur, wearing away habitual patterns, building concentration, opening awareness. Then, in a particular moment, often unpredictable and unexpected, something shifts completely. The sudden and gradual are not opposites but partners, the long, patient work and the breakthrough moment when the work bears fruit. This keeps practitioners from either clinging to dramatic experiences or giving up because progress seems slow. Original face existed before your parents were born. This koan asks you to discover your true nature, the self that exists prior to all the conditioning and identity you accumulated through life. Before you learned your name, before you developed preferences and opinions, before you were shaped by culture and family, what were you? The question points toward something unchanging beneath all change, a fundamental nature that was never born and will never die. This is not about remembering early childhood, but seeing into the nature of consciousness itself, recognizing awareness prior to content. Your original face has no features because it is not an object that can be seen, but the seeing itself. Working with this koan loosens identification with the personality and history you usually take yourself to be, revealing a deeper ground of being. The answer is not conceptual, but experiential, a direct recognition of what you are beyond all the stories about who you are. Nothing to attain means already complete. This teaching directly confronts the achieving mind that approaches practice as self-improvement project. If there is nothing to attain, then sitting meditation is not about getting somewhere, but about realizing you already are where you need to be. Complete does not mean perfect in the sense of no flaws, but whole, not lacking anything essential. The belief that you are inadequate and need fixing is itself the problem, the source of suffering, and practice reveals that this belief is unfounded. You are already Buddha nature, already the awareness capable of enlightenment, already complete even with all your apparent imperfections. This does not mean you stop practicing, but that practice becomes celebration rather than remediation, an expression of completeness rather than a struggle toward it. The shift is subtle, but profound, from trying to become worthy to recognizing you already are, from seeking peace to discovering it was never truly absent. The Great Way is not difficult for those without preferences. This line from the Xingxin Ming, a foundational Zen text, points to how suffering arises from the constant judging mind that labels experiences as desirable or undesirable. When you want things to be different than they are, you create tension and dissatisfaction. When you accept what is without demanding it be otherwise, the struggle ceases. This does not mean becoming passive or never working to change things, but it means not adding the layer of resistance that makes every experience a battle. Rain is just rain until you decide you prefer sunshine. Then rain becomes a problem. Pain is just sensation until you insist it should not be there. Then pain becomes suffering. The teaching suggests that the spiritual path is only difficult because we make it so with our constant preferences, our insistence on comfort and pleasure, our rejection of discomfort and displeasure. When preferences quiet down, what remains is the Great Way, simple and direct, nothing to accept or reject, just this moment as it actually is. Spring comes and grass grows by itself. This teaching emphasizes the naturalness of awakening, the fact that enlightenment is not forced or manufactured, but allowed to unfold like seasonal changes. You cannot make spring arrive through effort. You can only notice when it comes, when the conditions align and grass begins growing without anyone commanding it. In the same way, you cannot force awakening, but you can create conditions where it naturally arises. Practice is like preparing soil, removing obstacles, providing water and light, then trusting the organic process. This teaching challenges the Western tendency toward aggressive self-improvement, the belief that anything worth having must be achieved through hard work and willpower. Zen suggests a different relationship with change, one that recognizes your role but also acknowledges larger forces at work. You practice, you show up, you pay attention, and then you allow, trusting that understanding will emerge when conditions are right. That growth happens by itself when you stop trying to control every aspect of the process. Sitting quietly, doing nothing, the spring comes. This line from a Zen poem completes the thought about natural unfolding, suggesting that practice is fundamentally about non-doing, about getting out of the way so reality can reveal itself. When you sit quietly, doing nothing, you are not being lazy, but allowing, creating space for insight that cannot be forced. The spring represents awakening or understanding, something that arrives on its own schedule, not through your effort, but through your receptivity. This teaching can be confusing because it seems to contradict the emphasis on practice, but the resolution is that practice is active non-doing, intentionally creating conditions of openness and presence. You sit, you stay, you return attention to breath, but you do not make anything happen beyond that. The transformation occurs not through your manipulation, but through the natural intelligence of awareness when given space to operate. Spring comes to those who wait with open attention, not to those who try to drag it forth through force of will. When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep. This teaching attributed to Linji emphasizes the directness of Zen, the way it cuts through philosophical complexity to return to simple, immediate experience. When you are hungry, eat. Do not complicate it with thoughts about whether you deserve food, or whether eating is spiritual, or whether you should be meditating instead. When tired, sleep. Do not fight natural rhythms with ideas about productivity or discipline. The teaching points to a kind of natural responsiveness, meeting needs as they arise without the overlay of self-consciousness and second-guessing. It also challenges the tendency to turn spirituality into another set of rules that disconnect you from basic wisdom of the body. Zen is not about transcending the body but living fully in it, honoring its needs while not being enslaved by cravings. The simplicity is the teaching. Life becomes complicated when you argue with reality, when you think you should be other than you are, want other than you want, need other than you need. When you simply respond to what is actually happening without all the mental commentary, life flows with surprising ease. 3 pounds of flax becomes teaching about thusness. A monk asked Master Dongshan, "What is Buddha?" expecting some profound philosophical answer, and Dongshan replied, 3 pounds of flax. This seemingly nonsensical response is classic Zen, refusing to answer in the expected way, pointing instead to ordinary reality as the answer. The 3 pounds of flax was probably whatever Dongshan happened to be weighing at that moment, completely mundane, yet he offered it as the answer to the ultimate question. The teaching is that Buddha nature is not somewhere else in some transcendent realm, but right here in the ordinary particulars of this moment, in the weight of flax, the sound of rain, the taste of tea. When you seek Buddha elsewhere, you miss Buddha right here. The response also demonstrates thusness or suchness, the quality of things being exactly what they are without needing to be anything else. Flax is flax, complete and perfect in its flaxness, not trying to be silk or cotton, and in that complete ordinary being is the teaching. Reality is always teaching if you stop demanding it be extraordinary. The oak tree in the garden points beyond concepts. Another monk asked, "What is the meaning of Bodhidharma's coming from the West, seeking the essence of Zen teaching?" And the master replied, "The oak tree in the garden." Again, the response avoids abstraction, points to direct perception, invites the student to look rather than think. What makes this response profound is that it refuses the conceptual game the question implies, the search for meaning, as if truth could be captured in words. The oak tree stands there, solid and particular, completely itself. And in seeing it directly, without the filter of concepts and interpretations, you touch the same reality Bodhidharma brought. The teaching is that Zen does not add meaning to reality. It strips away the layers of meaning you have added, reveals the bare suchness of things. The oak tree is not a symbol of something else, not a metaphor. It is the oak tree. And when you see it completely, free from all your ideas about oak trees, you understand what Bodhidharma brought from the West, which was the possibility of this direct, unmediated seeing. Washing your bowl completes the meal completely. A monk told Zhao Zhou he had just arrived at the monastery and asked for teaching, and Zhao Zhou asked, "Have you eaten your rice porridge?" The monk said yes, and Zhao Zhou replied, "Then go wash your bowl." The teaching is about completion, about not leaving anything hanging, about bringing full attention to the simple act of cleaning up after yourself. It is also about not seeking something special beyond what you are already doing. The spiritual teaching is not somewhere else waiting to be received. It is in the immediate, ordinary activity of washing the bowl. When you wash your bowl with complete attention, that is the teaching, that is the practice, that is enlightenment itself. Zen constantly redirects attention away from the extraordinary toward the ordinary, insisting that the sacred is found in simple acts performed with full presence. The monk wanted special teaching and received the instruction to complete what he started, to close the circle, to wash the bowl, and in doing so discover that every action can be practiced when performed completely without remainder. Bodhidharma brought Chan from India to China. The legendary founder of Zen traveled from India to China in the 6th century, carrying teachings that would transform into something new. Historical details about Bodhidharma are uncertain, wrapped in legend and mythology. But the tradition credits him with establishing the meditative approach that became Chan Buddhism. He reportedly met with the Emperor Wu, who asked about the merit of building temples and supporting monks, and Bodhidharma answered, "No merit," shocking the ruler who expected praise for his generosity. This exchange demonstrates the directness that would characterize Zen, the willingness to challenge conventional religious thinking, the emphasis on internal realization over external actions. Whether or not the meeting happened as described, the story captures something true about the teaching Bodhidharma represented, a Buddhism less concerned with ritual accumulation of merit and more focused on direct seeing into one's own nature. His journey eastward became the symbolic beginning of a tradition that would eventually spread throughout Asia and eventually to the West. Facing the wall for 9 years taught patience. Legend says Bodhidharma sat facing a cave wall in meditation for 9 years, never turning around, just sitting in unwavering stillness. The image became iconic in Zen, representing the depth of commitment required, the willingness to sit through doubt and difficulty without seeking entertainment or distraction. Whether this happened literally or symbolically, it points to the Zen understanding that transformation requires time and sustained effort, that insight cannot be rushed. 9 years of sitting teaches something that 9 days cannot, wears away the layers of conditioning through sheer persistent presence. The wall-gazing position also suggests inward focus, turning away from external seeking toward internal investigation. In Zen halls today, practitioners often sit facing walls, and this posture connects them to Bodhidharma across centuries, a physical link to the founding teacher who demonstrated that patience and persistence can open what force cannot. Hui Neng, the illiterate woodcutter, became 6th patriarch. The story of Hui Neng challenges assumptions about who can access enlightenment and what qualifications matter. He was not a scholar or monk, but a poor woodcutter who could not read. Yet when he heard someone reciting the Diamond Sutra, something awakened in him. He traveled to the monastery where the 5th patriarch taught, was set to work pounding rice in the kitchen because of his low status, but his understanding was genuine and deep. When the 5th patriarch held a poetry contest to determine his successor, Hui Neng composed a verse that revealed profound insight, despite needing someone else to write it down for him. The poem demonstrated he understood that Buddha nature has no dust to wipe away, no mirror to polish, because it is fundamentally pure. His selection as 6th patriarch established the Southern School of Chan, emphasizing sudden enlightenment and the idea that awakening is available to anyone, regardless of education or social position. The illiterate woodcutter became one of the most influential teachers in the tradition, proving that realization is not about accumulated knowledge, but direct seeing. His poem, Revealed Mirror, has no stand. During the succession contest, the leading disciple Shenxiu wrote a poem comparing the body to a Bodhi tree and the mind to a mirror stand, suggesting continuous polishing to keep dust from gathering. This represented the gradual approach to enlightenment, the idea that practice slowly cleans the mind. Hui Neng's response poem stated, "There is no Bodhi tree, no mirror stand. Originally, nothing exists. So where can dust collect?" This radical statement challenged the very framework, suggesting that Buddha nature is not something that gets dirty and needs cleaning, but fundamentally pure from the beginning. The difference was not just philosophical, but pointed to different understandings of practice and realization. If the mirror needs constant polishing, practice becomes endless maintenance work. If there is no mirror to polish, practice becomes recognition of what already is. Hui Neng's verse established the sudden enlightenment teaching that would define one major stream of Zen, the understanding that awakening is not gradual achievement, but sudden recognition of original purity. Dogen carried Zen from China to Japan. In the 13th century, a young Japanese monk named Dogen traveled to China seeking authentic teaching, unsatisfied with the Buddhism he found in Japan. He studied with Master Rujing, who emphasized shikantaza, just sitting meditation without techniques or goals. Dogen experienced profound awakening, and received transmission, then returned to Japan to establish what became the Soto school of Zen. He was a philosopher as well as meditation master, writing extensively about practice in works like the Shobogenzo, exploring the nature of time, being, and enlightenment with remarkable depth. His teaching emphasized that practice and enlightenment are not separate, that sitting meditation is not a means to an end, but the expression of awakened nature itself. Dogen's writings remain influential today, studied by scholars and practitioners alike for their poetic precision and philosophical rigor. He brought Zen to Japan not as mere transplant, but as living tradition that continued to develop, adapting to new soil while maintaining essential qualities of the practice he received. Just sitting becomes the complete practice. Dogen taught shikantaza, which translates to just sitting, a practice without objects or techniques, without counting breaths or working with koans. You simply sit in upright posture with wakeful awareness, not trying to achieve anything, not seeking special states, just being completely present with sitting itself. This is sometimes called objectless meditation because attention is not focused on anything particular but remains open to whatever arises. The teaching is that this sitting is already enlightenment, not preparation for it, but expression of it, that Buddha nature is fully present in the simple act of sitting with whole body and mind. This approach can feel frustratingly simple. The mind wants something to do, some technique to apply. But shikantaza asks you to drop all techniques and simply be. Over time, the simplicity reveals depth. The doing, nothing, becomes everything, and the practice that seemed to lack content shows itself as complete. Dogen emphasized that even one moment of sitting expresses Buddha nature. That realization is not distant goal, but present reality revealed through sustained practice. Mountains are mountains again after long practice. This teaching describes 3 stages of Zen practice using the image of mountains. Before you begin practice, mountains are just mountains. You see them in the ordinary, conventional way. After you begin practice and start seeing through conceptual overlays, mountains are no longer mountains. You recognize the empty, impermanent nature of what you thought was solid and permanent. After deeper practice, mountains are mountains again. But now you see both the form and the emptiness, the particular and the universal, without contradiction. The teaching suggests that Zen is not about denying the everyday world, but seeing it more completely. That the goal is not to escape ordinary reality, but to perceive it fully. The mountains in the 3rd stage look the same as the 1st stage, but your relationship to them has transformed. You can use conventional language and live in the everyday world while simultaneously seeing its deeper nature. This prevents students from getting stuck in emptiness as another concept, from thinking that denying form is more spiritual than acknowledging it. Ryokan lived in mountain hut with almost nothing. This 18th century monk poet chose simplicity so radical it became legendary, living alone in a small mountain hut with minimal possessions. He begged for food rather than accepting temple positions that would have provided comfort and security, preferring freedom and solitude to institutional life. His practice was private and personal, without students or formal teaching role, yet his poetry and calligraphy preserved a teaching about letting go, about finding richness in poverty, about the freedom that comes from wanting nothing. Stories about Ryokan often emphasize his playfulness and gentleness, playing with children, writing humorous poems, embodying a practice that was serious without being solemn. His life demonstrated that spiritual practice does not require official recognition or position, that one person sitting alone in a mountain hut can be complete expression of the way. The simplicity was not deprivation, but choice, stripping away everything unnecessary to discover what remains when you own almost nothing. His poetry captured moonlight through roof holes. Ryokan wrote with extraordinary delicacy about the simplest experiences, finding beauty in poverty and solitude. One famous poem describes moonlight streaming through holes in his roof, snow falling inside during winter, an image that could represent suffering or deprivation, but becomes in his hands something beautiful, the natural world entering his life without barrier. His poems often feature children, flowers, moon, seasons, ordinary moments perceived with such clarity they become luminous. The poetry was not separate from his practice, but expression of the same awareness cultivated in meditation, the ability to see clearly without the distortion of wanting things to be different. Moonlight through roof holes is just moonlight through roof holes until you add the story that your roof should not have holes, that poverty is shameful, that you deserve better. Ryokan saw without those stories, received each moment as it came, and his poetry preserves that quality of acceptance and wonder. Reading his work centuries later, you still feel the moonlight falling gently on rough floors. Hakuin revitalized Rinzai school through koan practice. During the 18th century, Japanese Zen had become somewhat formalized and weak, more concerned with ritual than realization. Hakuin, a fierce and brilliant teacher, systematized koan study and demanded genuine insight from students, restoring rigor to practice. He arranged koans in a progression, starting with fundamental breakthrough koans like Mu, then moving through hundreds of others that tested different aspects of understanding. His teaching was not gentle. He pushed students hard, sometimes using harsh methods that would be questioned today, but his commitment to authentic realization was absolute. Hakuin also painted and wrote, creating images and texts that conveyed Zen teaching through art. His influence shaped how Rinzai Zen is practiced today, particularly the intensive koan curriculum used in Japanese and Western training centers. He proved that traditions can be reformed from within, that when practice becomes stale, someone with sufficient understanding and determination can breathe life back into it. His legacy is not just his own enlightenment, but the countless students who experienced breakthrough through the systematic training he developed. What is your original face became central question. Hakuin emphasized this koan, asking students to discover the self that existed before birth, the face you had before your parents were born. The question cuts to the core of identity, challenging everything you think you know about who you are. Your personality, memories, preferences, all the content that fills awareness. These are acquired, learned, constructed. But what lies beneath or before all that? The original face is not another concept to understand, but a reality to directly perceive. And working with this koan can shake loose the habitual identification with thoughts and feelings. Hakuin demanded that students bring their understanding not as intellectual explanation, but as lived demonstration, that they show their original face in how they respond, move, speak. This koan remains central in Rinzai training because it addresses the fundamental question of Zen practice. Who or what are you really when all the layers of conditioning and story are set aside? The answer cannot be spoken directly, but must be embodied, and the koan works by frustrating every attempt to answer in conventional ways until something shifts. Bankai taught unborn Buddha mind to farmers. While some Zen masters taught primarily monks in monasteries, Bankai in the 17th century gave public talks to ordinary people, farmers and merchants who could not dedicate their lives to formal practice. His teaching emphasized the unborn, the original mind that is already perfect and complete, never coming into existence and never ceasing. He told people they did not need to do anything to acquire Buddha mind. They already had it. They only needed to recognize it and stop obscuring it with thoughts and emotions. This accessible teaching did not require people to master complex philosophy or spend years in meditation halls. It invited immediate recognition. Bankai would demonstrate by pointing out that when they heard his voice, they heard it with unborn mind, not through effort or technique, but naturally. His teaching was both simple and profound, cutting through complexity to offer direct entry for anyone willing to look. The fact that he taught farmers and lay people showed that Zen was not only for religious specialists, but for anyone who wanted to live with greater awareness and freedom. Ikkyu broke conventions to reveal genuine practice. This 15th century master is remembered as much for his unconventionality as his insight, deliberately breaking rules to point beyond form to essence. He frequented taverns, wrote erotic poetry, criticized the corruption he saw in religious institutions, all while maintaining deep practice and genuine realization. His behavior scandalized many, but contained teaching about the difference between true and false practice, between following rules to appear spiritual and genuine awakening that transcends conventions. Ikkyu showed that Zen is not about perfect behavior or conformity, but about freedom that comes from seeing through attachment to form. His criticism of religious hypocrisy was fierce. He could not stand teachers who emphasized external observance while lacking internal realization. Some stories about him are probably exaggerated, legends that grew around his reputation, but the core teaching remains, that awakening frees you from needing to appear awakened, that genuine practice may look quite different from conventional religious behavior. Ikkyu demonstrated that Zen, at its best, is alive and creative, not trapped in rigid forms. Basho transformed poetry into spiritual practice. The 17th century poet Matsuo Basho elevated haiku to an art that captured Zen awareness in 17 syllables, creating poems that were simultaneously simple and profound. He wandered Japan mostly on foot, writing about what he encountered. Small moments perceived with such clarity, they opened into spaciousness. His poetry was not about clever wordplay, but direct perception, seeing clearly and recording what was seen without embellishment. The practice of haiku as Basho developed, it required the same attention as meditation, being fully present to notice the frog jumping into the pond or the crow on a bare branch, then finding words that preserved the immediacy of that perception. He taught students not just poetry technique, but a way of being in the world, receptive and aware, available to be moved by small things. His travel journals blend poetry and prose, describing journeys that were both physical and spiritual, walking as practice, observation as meditation. Basho showed that enlightenment could be expressed in any form, that a perfect haiku could transmit the same understanding as a koan or a dharma talk. Ancient pond frog jumps in sound of water. This is perhaps the most famous haiku in Japanese literature, written by Basho. Only 17 syllables in the original, that somehow contain infinite space. The poem presents three elements: an ancient pond suggesting stillness and depth, a frog jumping suggesting sudden movement, and the sound of water suggesting the moment of contact. What makes the poem remarkable is what it does not say. All the explanation and interpretation left out, just this simple observation recorded. The ancient pond can represent original mind, still and deep. The frog can represent a thought or moment of perception arising. The sound can represent the meeting of awareness and object. But these interpretations arise afterward. The poem itself simply presents the experience. Reading or hearing it, you are invited to hear the sound yourself, to be present to that moment of sudden action and resulting sound, and in that presence touch the quality of awareness Basho cultivated. The poem has been analyzed endlessly, yet it remains simple, just pond and frog and splash, complete in itself. Uchiyama Roshi brought Zen to modern seekers. In the 20th century, Kosho Uchiyama served as abbot of Antaiji Monastery in Japan, teaching a practice deeply grounded in Dogen while speaking to contemporary concerns. He emphasized sitting meditation as fundamental, wrote books explaining Zen philosophy in accessible language, and maintained rigorous practice schedule while being remarkably humble and down-to-earth. His teaching attracted both Japanese and Western students seeking authentic Zen in an era of growing interest. Uchiyama did not claim special powers or enlightenment. He simply practiced steadily and encouraged others to do the same, trusting that sitting itself was enough. His writings are practical and philosophical at once, explaining complex Buddhist concepts while always returning to the direct experience of meditation. He demonstrated that traditional practice could be maintained without becoming rigid or irrelevant, that ancient teachings could speak to modern people struggling with modern problems. His influence continues through students who established practice centers worldwide, carrying his emphasis on just sitting into new cultures and contexts. Opening the hand of thought releases grasping. This phrase from Uchiyama Roshi became the title of one of his most important books, capturing a central teaching about the nature of thought and how to relate to it. Most of the time, the mind grasps thoughts tightly, identifying with them, believing them, making them solid and real. When you open the hand of thought, you do not eliminate thinking, but change your relationship to it, holding thoughts more lightly, recognizing them as thoughts rather than facts. The image is gentle, not crushing thought or fighting it, but simply opening the hand, letting thoughts rest in open palm, where they can be seen clearly without being grasped. This relates to the Zazen instruction to let thoughts come and go like clouds, neither suppressing them nor following them, just noticing with the same awareness you bring to breath or sensation. Opening the hand of thought creates space, allows you to see that you are not your thoughts, that awareness is larger than thought. And in that recognition, suffering loosens, because suffering depends on grasping, on insisting thoughts be true or permanent. The phrase is both instruction and invitation, suggesting a gentle possible way of being with your mind. Suzuki Roshi introduced beginner's mind to West. When Shunryu Suzuki came to San Francisco in 1959 to serve a Japanese-American congregation, he did not expect to attract Western students, but his teaching resonated deeply with Americans seeking authentic practice. He established San Francisco Zen Center, which became one of the most influential Zen communities in the West, and later Tasajara, the first Zen monastery in America. His teaching was simple and profound, emphasizing posture, breath, and the attitude he called beginner's mind, approaching each moment freshly without fixed ideas. His book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, compiled from informal talks, became a classic, read by countless people seeking entry to Zen practice. Suzuki Roshi was patient with Western students who brought different cultural backgrounds and expectations, adapting teaching while maintaining its essential quality. He emphasized that practice itself was enlightenment, not means to an end, that sitting zazen with correct posture and attitude was already complete expression of Buddha nature. His gentle persistence planted Zen firmly in American soil, creating lineages that continue today through students and students of students. In beginner's mind, many possibilities. Expert's mind, few. This teaching from Suzuki Roshi captures why fresh, open awareness is valued over accumulated knowledge and expertise. The expert knows a great deal, and that knowledge can become limitation, creating fixed categories and expectations that filter perception. You see what you expect to see, respond from habit rather than fresh observation, miss possibilities because they do not fit existing frameworks. Beginner's mind does not know what should happen, has no fixed categories, remains open to surprise. This does not mean deliberately forgetting what you know, but holding knowledge lightly, being willing to set it aside and look directly. In meditation, beginner's mind means approaching each session without expecting it to be like previous sessions, without judging progress, without already knowing what will happen. In daily life, it means listening to people as if you have never met them before, tasting food as if for the first time, seeing familiar places with fresh eyes. The paradox is that this openness often leads to deeper understanding than expertise, because it allows reality to show itself rather than confirming what you already believe. Thich Nhat Hanh made mindfulness accessible globally. This Vietnamese monk became one of the most widely known Buddhist teachers in the world, spreading practices of mindfulness and peace to millions through books, talks, and retreats. His teaching emphasized everyday activities as opportunities for practice: walking meditation, mindful eating, conscious breathing during ordinary moments. He coined the phrase engaged Buddhism to describe practice that addresses social suffering and injustice, not separating meditation from action in the world. His writings are simple and poetic, making Buddhist teachings accessible to people with no background in Eastern philosophy. He established Plum Village in France as a practice community where people could come for short or long stays, experiencing monastic life adapted for lay people. His teaching about interbeing, the interconnection of all things, helped Western students understand emptiness not as nihilism, but as mutual interdependence. During the Vietnam War, he advocated for peace, while monks and nuns in his tradition risked their lives serving suffering people. He showed that Zen could be both deeply traditional and radically engaged, that sitting meditation could lead to compassionate action rather than withdrawal from the world. Washing dishes becomes gateway to peace. Thich Nhat Hanh taught that any activity performed with full attention becomes meditation, that you do not need to be sitting on a cushion to practice. His instruction for washing dishes was to wash dishes, not to wash them quickly while thinking about what comes next, but to be fully present with warm water, soap, the feeling of the dish in your hands. This transforms a chore into practice. A moment that was previously just task to complete becomes opportunity for presence and even joy. The teaching is that if you cannot find peace while washing dishes, you probably will not find it while sitting in meditation either, because the mind brings the same restlessness to both activities. When you wash dishes just to wash dishes, giving complete attention to the simple activity, you enter the present moment, which is the only place peace actually exists. This makes practice available constantly, not confined to special times and places, transforming ordinary life into field of awakening. The dish becomes teacher, the water becomes dharma, and the moment of washing becomes complete in itself, not means to something else, but perfect as it is. Master Seung San asked, "Only don't know." This Korean Zen master, who brought his tradition to the West, had a teaching style that emphasized direct pointing beyond conceptual understanding. His signature phrase, "Only don't know," became a koan for many students, an instruction to maintain the mind that does not grasp after knowledge and certainty. When students asked complicated questions, he often responded by asking, "What are you?" or saying, "Only keep don't know mind," redirecting attention away from intellectual answers toward direct inquiry. This not knowing is not ignorance, but wisdom that recognizes the limits of conceptual understanding, that sees knowing as often getting in the way of seeing clearly. The don't know mind is open, curious, available to perceive without the filter of accumulated beliefs. Seung San taught with humor and directness, using everyday situations to point out attachment and delusion, not allowing students to hide behind Zen concepts or spiritual language. His teaching created communities in the West where Western and Korean styles blended, formal practice and contemporary engagement, maintaining rigor while adapting to new cultural contexts. The don't know mind, he emphasized, remains central instruction, invitation to set aside certainty and meet reality directly. Rock gardens arrange stones in raked gravel. The Japanese dry landscape gardens called karesansui create entire worlds from stones and gravel, no water or plants, just carefully chosen rocks set in raked white gravel that suggests the movement of water or clouds. These gardens emerged from Zen temples, designed as meditation objects where the eye can rest and the mind can quiet. The stones are not randomly placed, but positioned after long consideration, sometimes moved many times before finding the right location, the right angle, the right relationship to other stones. The gravel is raked in patterns that must be maintained, renewed daily or weekly, so the garden is never finished, but always in process. Looking at these gardens, you see simplicity that contains complexity, minimalism that feels rich rather than empty. The rocks become mountains, the raked gravel becomes ocean, and the whole composition invites a particular quality of attention, spacious and calm, seeing form and emptiness simultaneously. These gardens are not trying to represent nature, but to distill its essence, creating space where mind can settle into the same stillness the garden embodies. Each stone placement follows natural asymmetry. In Zen gardens, symmetry is usually avoided because perfect balance can feel static and lifeless. Instead, stones are arranged in odd numbers, 3 or 5 or 7, positioned in ways that feel natural rather than geometric. The asymmetry creates tension and movement, draws the eye around the composition, rather than letting it rest in mechanical center. This reflects a deeper aesthetic principle in Zen that values the irregular and imperfect, seeing them as more alive than manufactured perfection. Natural stones are chosen partly for their weathered surfaces and irregular shapes, qualities that reveal their history and authenticity. The placement honors each stone's particular character, rather than forcing it into predetermined scheme. When done well, the arrangement looks inevitable, as if the stones place themselves, yet achieving that naturalness requires great care and attention. The garden teaches through its composition, showing how asymmetry and irregularity can create harmony more convincing than perfect balance. Raking patterns refresh the mind daily. The gravel in a Zen garden is not left alone but raked regularly, creating patterns that flow around stones like water flowing around islands. This maintenance is part of the garden's teaching, the practice of renewing patterns that will be disturbed by rain or wind or visitors, then raked again. The act of raking becomes meditation, moving slowly and deliberately, drawing lines that follow curves of stones and edges of the garden, creating order from disorder. Each raking is different, responding to current conditions, yet following traditional patterns that have evolved over centuries. The impermanence is built into the design. The garden, accepting that its beauty will not last, will need constant tending, and finding in that need for renewal an opportunity for practice. When you rake the garden, you are not preserving something fixed but participating in ongoing creation. And that participation is where the practice lives. The fresh patterns please the eye, but the act of making them settles the mind, turning maintenance into meditation. Moss grows slowly, teaching patient observation. In Japanese gardens, moss is valued for its soft texture and rich green color, but it cannot be rushed, growing slowly over months and years. Cultivating moss requires patience, providing the right conditions of shade and moisture, then waiting for nature to do its work. The moss teaches by its pace, resisting human desire for instant results, showing that some beautiful things simply take time. As it spreads across stones and ground, it creates a carpet that feels ancient, even when relatively new, softening hard edges and adding depth to the landscape. The slow growth invites slow observation, noticing subtle changes over seasons, the way certain areas thicken while others remain sparse, how light affects color, how rain brings it alive. This attention to slow process counters the modern tendency toward speed and efficiency, offering instead the satisfaction of watching something develop at its own natural pace. The moss is not trying to grow, it is simply responding to conditions, and there is teaching in that effortless unfolding, the way life proceeds when not forced or hurried. Borrowed scenery includes distant mountains. The principle of shake in Japanese garden design involves incorporating views beyond the garden itself, using distant mountains or trees as part of the composition. A garden might be relatively small, but by including the mountain on the horizon, it expands to include vast space. This technique acknowledges that the garden does not exist in isolation, but as part of larger landscape, and the boundary between garden and world is permeable. The borrowed scenery changes with weather and season, mountains appearing or disappearing in mist, adding dynamic element to what might otherwise be static composition. This practice also teaches about interconnection, the way nothing exists independently but always in relationship to surroundings. The garden designer cannot control the distant mountain, but can create openings that frame it, invite the eye toward it, make it part of the experience. In this way, the garden becomes meditation on relationship between near and far, control and acceptance, designed space and wild nature, all coexisting in single view. Empty space holds the composition together. In Zen aesthetics, empty space called ma is not absence, but active presence, the silence between notes that makes music possible. A garden uses empty areas to create breathing room, allowing eye and mind to rest between focal points. Too much clutter overwhelms, but empty space creates rhythm and emphasis, letting important elements stand out. This principle appears in all Japanese arts influenced by Zen. Painting leaves much of the canvas blank. Flower arrangement uses few stems with space around them. Architecture creates rooms that feel spacious despite small size. The emptiness is carefully considered, not leftover space, but essential component of design. In meditation, ma is the gap between thoughts, the silence between sounds, the space where awareness rests without object. Learning to appreciate emptiness in art helps you appreciate it in experience, recognizing that gaps and pauses are not deficits but opportunities for presence. The garden teaches this visually, showing how empty space gives meaning to form, how less can genuinely be more when the less is conscious choice rather than mere absence. Wabi-sabi finds beauty in imperfection. This aesthetic principle, central to Zen, sees beauty in weathered surfaces, irregular shapes, signs of age and wear. Where Western aesthetics often values polish and perfection, Wabi-sabi appreciates the crack in the pottery, the worn spot on the floor, the asymmetrical arrangement. Wabi suggests rustic simplicity and quiet elegance, while Sabi points to beauty that comes with age, the patina and character that time brings. Together, they describe an appreciation for things as they actually are, including their impermanence and imperfection, rather than as idealized versions. This aesthetic grows from Buddhist understanding of impermanence, the teaching that everything changes and nothing lasts. So beauty itself must be found in the changing rather than denied by seeking permanence. A perfect new object has nowhere to go but down, but something already showing where has character and history. Wabi-sabi invites acceptance of reality as it is, finding the beautiful in the broken, the old, the incomplete, seeing them not as defects, but as expressions of authentic existence. Weathered wood shows honest aging. In traditional Japanese buildings and tea houses, wood is often left unpainted, allowed to weather naturally, turning gray and developing texture over decades. This weathering is not seen as deterioration, but as maturation, the wood becoming more beautiful as it ages. The grain becomes more pronounced, the color deepens, and the surface takes on character that new wood lacks. This appreciation for aged materials reflects the wabi-sabi aesthetic, the understanding that time reveals rather than diminishes beauty. Modern culture often tries to preserve everything in pristine condition, fighting against natural aging, but Zen aesthetics embrace the process, seeing in weathered surfaces the honest truth of existence. Nothing stays new, everything changes, and fighting that fact creates suffering while accepting it, allows appreciation for what each stage offers. The weathered wood has lived through seasons and storms, has supported the building for generations, and its appearance tells that story. Looking at it, you see time made visible, impermanence given form, and there is strange comfort in that honesty. Asymmetry feels more alive than perfect balance. Zen arts deliberately avoid perfect symmetry, preferring arrangements that feel dynamic rather than static. In flower arrangement, you rarely see stems of equal height or flowers evenly spaced. Instead, the composition tilts, leans, creates movement. In pottery, a bowl might be slightly irregular, one side higher than the other, adding character and uniqueness. This preference comes partly from observation of nature, which rarely produces perfect symmetry, and partly from the understanding that perfect balance can feel dead while asymmetry feels vital. The slight irregularity requires your attention. Your eye moves through the composition seeking balance rather than finding it immediately. This creates engagement, relationship, whereas perfect symmetry can be taken in at a glance and dismissed. Asymmetry also allows each object to express its particular nature, rather than conforming to abstract ideal. The crooked branch is honored for its crookedness, the irregular stone for its irregularity, and in that honoring is respect for reality as it presents itself, rather than as we wish it to be. Calligraphy captures mind state in brushstroke. Japanese and Chinese calligraphy called shodo is not just writing, but meditation, each character formed with complete attention and commitment. The brush is loaded with ink, positioned over paper, and in a single flowing movement, the character appears, no hesitation or correction possible. This demands presence, confidence, and letting go of self-consciousness, qualities cultivated in Zen meditation. The finished character reveals the calligrapher's mind state, whether they were calm or agitated, focused or scattered, timid or bold. You can see in the brushwork the quality of attention that created it, the way ink soaks into paper, the variation in line thickness, the decisive or tentative quality of the stroke. Masters study for decades developing their brush technique, yet the goal is not perfect control, but spontaneous expression, action that flows from stillness without the interference of overthinking. Calligraphy becomes practice of mind-body unity, meditation made visible, the invisible quality of awareness given form through ink on paper. Single stroke cannot be revised or repeated. In calligraphy, once the brush touches paper, you are committed. The mark is made and cannot be undone. This irreversibility makes each stroke significant, focusing attention completely on the present moment of creating. You cannot afford to worry about the last stroke or anticipate the next one. You must be fully present with this stroke happening now. This quality makes calligraphy excellent training for presence, teaching you to act decisively without second-guessing, to commit fully to each movement. It also teaches acceptance of results. Whatever appears on the paper is what appeared. You cannot revise it into something else. You can only begin again with fresh paper. This mirrors life itself, where actions cannot be undone and moments cannot be relived, where the only real choice is how fully present you are to what is happening now. The practice cultivates a mind that can act with full commitment. Then, let go of attachment to results, neither clinging to success nor drowning in regret over imperfection. Enso circle may close or remain open. The enso is a circle drawn in one or two brushstrokes, a simple form that appears often in Zen art. Some enso close completely, others leave a small gap, and the difference carries meaning. The closed circle can represent perfection, completion the absolute, while the open circle suggests incompletion, the ongoing process, room for possibility. Both have value. Both teach something true. The circle itself represents emptiness, the void, Buddha nature, enlightenment. Yet like all symbols, it only points toward what cannot be fully captured. Drawing an enso is practice, requiring the same presence as any calligraphy, the brush moving in a continuous flow that cannot hesitate or correct. The resulting circle is unique each time, no two exactly alike, bearing the signature of the particular moment and mind that created it. Some are thick and bold, others thin and delicate, some perfectly round, and others obviously irregular. The Enso teaches that perfection can take many forms, that completion and incompletion are not opposites, but complements, that a simple circle drawn with full attention contains infinite depth. Flower arrangement follows nature, not force. Ikebana, the Japanese art of flower arrangement, grew deeply influenced by Zen principles of simplicity and natural beauty, unlike Western arrangements that often use many flowers to create full, lush displays. Ikebana might use just 3 stems, carefully positioned to create lines and space. The practice involves deep observation of each stem's natural character, how it bends, where branches emerge, what angle feels most alive. Rather than forcing stems into predetermined design, the arranger works with what the materials offer, finding in their particular qualities the shape the arrangement wants to take. This requires patience and attention, seeing possibilities rather than imposing ideas, allowing the arrangement to emerge from collaboration between plant material and human sensitivity. The finished piece often looks simple, even sparse, but carries a quality of presence and intention. It honors the materials, lets them be themselves within the composition, and creates beauty from restraint rather than abundance. The practice becomes meditation, slowing you down, focusing attention on small details, teaching gentleness and respect for living things. 3 branches represent heaven, earth, human. In traditional Ikebana, arrangements often use 3 main stems of different heights, symbolizing the relationship between heaven, earth, and humanity. The tallest branch represents heaven, reaching upward, aspiring toward the infinite. The middle branch represents humanity, mediating between above and below, participating in both realms. The shortest branch represents earth, grounding the arrangement, connecting to stability and foundation. This triadic structure appears throughout East Asian thought, expressing interconnection of cosmic, earthly, and human spheres. The arrangement is not meant to be symbolic in heavy-handed way, but to create balance that feels right intuitively, whether you know the symbolism or not. The practice teaches about relationship and proportion, how elements depend on each other, how nothing stands alone but exists in context. When you arrange flowers with awareness of these relationships, you are practicing more than decoration. You are meditating on your own place between heaven and earth, spirit and matter, aspiration and groundedness. Pottery shaped by hands holds imperfect beauty. Japanese pottery influenced by Zen often celebrates the irregular and handmade, bearing clear marks of the hands that shaped it. Unlike machine-made pottery that pursues perfect uniformity, these pieces show finger marks, slight wobbles, variations in thickness that reveal the forming process. This honesty is valued. The pot makes no pretense of being anything other than what it is, clay shaped by human hands. The imperfections give the piece character and warmth, make it feel alive rather than mass-produced. Tea bowls are particularly prized when they show these qualities, each one unique, fitting the hand in a particular way, inviting relationship between object and user. The potter does not try to hide their humanity, but lets it show through the work, accepting that perfection is not the goal, but rather authentic expression. This approach to craft teaches that value comes not from flawless execution, but from presence and sincerity, from work done with full attention, even when the result is imperfect. Raku, firing, embraces unpredictable results. Raku is a firing technique where pottery is removed from the kiln while still glowing hot and placed in combustible materials, creating dramatic effects that cannot be precisely controlled. The potter shapes the piece, applies glaze, fires it in the kiln, then removes it at peak temperature and places it in a container with sawdust or leaves which ignite, creating smoke and chemical reactions that mark the surface unpredictably. The results are always surprising. Even experienced potters cannot fully predict what will emerge. This element of surrender, of working with fire and chance, rather than controlling every variable, aligns with Zen teaching about non-attachment to outcomes. You do your part carefully, shape the pot, mix the glaze, tend the kiln, but then you must let go and accept what appears. Some pieces crack from thermal shock, some develop beautiful patterns, some are disappointing, but all teach about acceptance and the limits of control. Raku practice cultivates willingness to work with uncertainty, to find beauty in unexpected results, to participate in creative process without grasping at specific outcomes. Chado ceremony follows precise choreography. The Japanese tea ceremony, called chado or chanoyu, is a formal practice with movements refined over centuries, every gesture prescribed and meaningful. The host prepares tea, following exact sequence, cleaning utensils, scooping tea, adding water, whisking the mixture, presenting the bowl to the guest with specific rotation. Guests receive the tea according to ritual, bowing, rotating the bowl, drinking in particular manner, wiping the rim, rotating again, returning it with care. This formality is not empty ritual, but choreography that allows participants to enter a shared meditative state, the precision creating a container for awareness. When you know what comes next, the mind does not need to plan or worry. You can be fully present with each small action. The ceremony slows time, transforms utilitarian activity of drinking tea into something sacred, demonstrates that enlightenment is found in careful attention to ordinary acts. The choreography also creates equality, host and guest following the same forms regardless of social status, meeting in shared practice where only the tea and the moment matter. Each meeting happens only this one time. The phrase "ichi go ichi e" appears in tea ceremony context, meaning one time, one meeting, expressing the teaching that this particular gathering will never happen again in exactly this way. Even if the same people meet in the same tea room tomorrow, it will be different. Each person changed, however subtly, the moment unrepeatable. This teaching encourages complete presence, full appreciation of what is happening now, awareness that nothing lasts and moments are precious because they do not return. In tea ceremony, this awareness shapes how participants engage, not casually but with deep attention and gratitude, knowing this exact configuration of people, weather, season, mood, will never recur. The teaching extends beyond tea ceremony to all of life. Every encounter is unique. Every moment deserves full presence, because it will not come again. This is not sad but poignant, lending weight and beauty to ordinary moments when you recognize their singular nature. The teaching invites you to show up fully, to honor what is here now, to let go of taking things for granted, because you assume they will always be available. Sweeping temple grounds becomes moving meditation. In Zen monasteries, daily work includes cleaning, and this work is not considered separate from spiritual practice, but expression of it. Sweeping the courtyard or the halls is done with the same attention as sitting meditation, each stroke of the broom performed completely, not rushing to finish, but being fully present with the activity. The repetitive motion can be soothing. The mind settles into the rhythm, and the work becomes meditation in motion. This practice also teaches about service and humility. Spiritual practice is not only sitting in meditation hall, but includes ordinary maintenance that keeps the community functioning. The monk sweeping is not doing a lesser practice than the monk sitting. Both are expressions of the same awareness when performed with full attention. This democratization of practice means anyone can practice anywhere. Washing dishes or sweeping floors becomes opportunity for presence and mindfulness. The ground does not stay clean. It must be swept again tomorrow and the day after. Teaching about impermanence and the ongoing nature of practice, there is no final achievement, but constant renewal. Cleaning toilet receives same attention as altar. In Zen practice, all work is valued equally. Cleaning the toilet is given the same care and attention as cleaning the altar where offerings are made to Buddha. This teaching challenges the mind that ranks activities, that wants some tasks to be more important or spiritual than others. When you clean the toilet with full attention, without resistance or feeling it is beneath you, you are practicing non-discrimination, seeing through the labels that create preference and aversion. The toilet needs cleaning just as the altar does. Both tasks serve the community. Both can be done mindfully or mindlessly. The quality of practice is not determined by the object, but by the attention brought to the activity. This teaching is humbling and liberating at once. Humbling because it strips away spiritual pride. Liberating because it means every moment is opportunity for practice. Nowhere is too low or too ordinary to be sacred. The monk, cleaning toilets with full presence, is practicing just as authentically as the teacher giving Dharma talk, both expressing Buddha nature through their particular activity. Cooking meal with full attention feeds more than body. In monastery kitchen, the cook called Tenzo holds an honored position, preparing meals for the community with the same care others bring to meditation. The work involves planning, preparing, cooking, presenting food in ways that nourish both body and spirit. Traditional instructions for Tenzos emphasize mindfulness and gratitude, handling even simple vegetables with respect, wasting nothing, working efficiently but not frantically. The cook considers the community's needs, the season, what ingredients are available, creating meals that are simple but satisfying. This work becomes practice through complete attention, seeing each task as opportunity for presence, from washing rice to cutting vegetables to stirring the pot. The meal prepared with this attention carries that quality. People eating can sense when food was prepared with care versus when it was rushed or done resentfully. This teaching suggests that our actions affect not only ourselves but others. The quality of awareness we bring to work shows up in the results. Cooking becomes offering, way of serving and caring for others through practical necessary labor. Sewing, robe stitch by stitch, teaches concentration. Traditionally, Zen monks sew their own robes following ancient patterns, working slowly and carefully with small stitches, each one made with attention. This process can take many hours or days depending on the garment, providing extended opportunity for concentration practice. The repetitive action of needle entering fabric, thread pulling through, creating slow, steady progress toward completion, this becomes meditation in motion. The teaching is partly about self-reliance, making what you need rather than depending on others, but more deeply about bringing practice into ordinary activity. Sewing requires focus. If attention wanders, you make mistakes, prick your finger, lose your place in the pattern. The work teaches patience. You cannot rush it without creating poor results. You must proceed at the pace the work allows. The finished robe was not purchased, but created through your own effort, making it more precious, imbued with the hours of attention poured into its making. When you wear it, you remember the practice of making it. The robe becomes a reminder of mindfulness, patience, and respect for simple labor. Peace was never lost, only obscured. This teaching addresses a fundamental misunderstanding about spiritual practice, the belief that you are searching for something you lack. Zen suggests that peace, Buddha nature, your true self was never absent, only covered over by layers of thought, habit, and misperception. Practice does not create peace but reveals what was always present, like cleaning dust from a mirror that never stopped being reflective. The search itself can become the obstacle, creating the illusion of distance between you and what you seek. When you finally stop searching and simply rest, you may discover that what you wanted was here all along, closer than breath, more intimate than thought. This recognition does not come from effort, but from releasing effort, not from achieving, but from seeing through the belief that achievement is necessary. The peace you sought was the awareness seeking it, and in that recognition the search ends not through arrival, but through understanding. You were never truly separate from what you sought. Practice does not create Buddha nature, it reveals. Buddha nature is the term for the fundamental awakened quality that all beings possess, sometimes called true nature or original face. Zen teaching emphasizes that practice does not manufacture this quality, but uncovers it, removes the obscurations that prevent you from recognizing what you already are. This shifts practice from becoming someone new to discovering who you actually are beneath conditioning and habit. You are not broken and needing repair, not inadequate and requiring improvement, but fundamentally complete with that completeness, hidden by accumulated patterns of thinking and reacting. Meditation creates conditions where this nature can reveal itself, not through your effort to produce it, but through your willingness to stop covering it with constant mental activity. The revelation is not dramatic, external event, but quiet, internal recognition, a settling into what was always true, but rarely noticed. Practice becomes less about achieving enlightenment, and more about allowing what is already enlightened to show itself. Stillness exists beneath constant motion. The mind is almost always moving, thoughts arising and dissolving, plans forming, memories surfacing, a constant stream of mental activity that can feel overwhelming. Zen practice points to the awareness in which this movement occurs, the still space that remains unchanged regardless of what passes through it. Like the ocean floor remains quiet even when surface waves are turbulent, there is a depth of awareness that is not disturbed by thoughts and emotions. Accessing this stillness does not require stopping all mental activity, which is usually impossible and unnecessary, but shifting attention from the content of thought to the awareness holding it. This stillness is always present, always available, not something you create through concentration, but something you notice when attention settles. The discovery can be subtle. A moment where you recognize you are not the thoughts, but the space in which thoughts appear. And in that recognition is a freedom that does not depend on thoughts becoming different or disappearing. Silence speaks when noise finally quiets. There is a difference between silence as absence of sound and silence as presence, the active quiet that emerges when you stop filling space with noise. In meditation, you discover that silence is not empty, but full, containing subtle sounds usually drowned out, the hum of being itself. This silence is not something you impose, but something you allow by stopping your contribution to the noise, letting the mind's constant commentary fade. What emerges is not dead quiet, but alive stillness, awareness without the static of constant interpretation and judgment. Silence can communicate more than words, can hold truths that language cannot capture, can create intimacy that talking often prevents. In relationships, comfortable silence can be deeper than conversation. In nature, quiet reveals sounds you never noticed. In yourself, silence allows feelings and insights to surface, that noise keeps buried. Learning to value silence, to create space for it, to listen to what it holds, is part of Zen practice, a way of honoring the dimensions of experience that words cannot reach. Breathing continues, whether noticed or ignored. The breath is always happening, always available as anchor for attention, yet most of the time it proceeds without conscious awareness. This automatic quality makes it a perfect teacher about presence. You can bring attention to something that happens on its own, not controlling it, but simply observing. The breath also demonstrates a fundamental truth. Life continues regardless of whether you pay attention. The body knows what to do without your management, and this can be reassuring or humbling, depending on how much you need to feel in control. When you notice breath during meditation, you are not making it happen, but becoming conscious of what was already occurring. And this shift from unconscious to conscious, from ignored to noticed, is the shift practice invites in all areas of life. The breath is also always present tense. You cannot breathe yesterday's breath or tomorrow's, only this one now, which makes it perfect anchor to this moment. Following breath naturally brings you into present, gently and repeatedly, without force. This moment arrives without your permission. You do not decide when now begins, it simply appears, constant, fresh arising of present moment. This suggests a fundamental lack of control that can be either terrifying or liberating, depending on how you relate to it. Zen practice invites you to stop trying to control what cannot be controlled and instead meet what appears, responding with awareness rather than resistance. Each moment arrives complete, not requiring your approval or agreement, not waiting for you to be ready, simply showing up and inviting your presence. When you accept this, stop arguing with reality. Stop insisting things should be other than they are. A particular kind of peace becomes possible. Not peace because circumstances are perfect, but peace because you have stopped fighting what is. The moment does not care whether you are ready, whether you feel adequate, whether you think you deserve it. It arrives anyway, and your only real choice is whether to meet it openly or spend it wishing it were different. Acceptance does not mean approval. This distinction is crucial in Zen practice and often misunderstood. Acceptance means acknowledging what is actually happening, seeing reality clearly without distortion, while approval means liking or condoning it. You can accept that you feel angry without approving of anger as desirable state. You can accept that someone behaved badly without approving of their behavior. Acceptance is clear seeing. Approval is judgment, and the two are separate. When you accept what is, you create possibility for response rather than reaction. You can work skillfully with reality because you are not wasting energy denying or resisting it. Denial does not change reality, but prevents you from seeing it clearly enough to respond appropriately. This teaching prevents acceptance from becoming passive resignation. You can accept fully and still work to change what can be changed, but you work from clarity rather than from struggle against what is. The acceptance is the clear seeing, and from that seeing wise action can emerge. Compassion flows when separation dissolves. Much of suffering comes from the belief in fundamental separation, the sense that you are isolated, individual, disconnected from others and the world. Zen practice can dissolve this illusion, revealing the interconnection that was always present, but obscured by self-centered thinking. When you see that separation is constructed rather than ultimate truth, compassion arises naturally, not as moral obligation, but as recognition of shared nature. If others are not truly separate from you, their suffering is not distant problem, but intimate concern. This is not sentimental feeling, but clear seeing, understanding at experiential level that the boundaries between self and other are permeable and conventional rather than absolute. Compassion in Zen is not pity from above, but fellow feeling from recognition of shared humanity, shared vulnerability, shared Buddha nature. When separation dissolves, helping others becomes as natural as caring for yourself, because the distinction loses its absolute quality. This compassion is not forced or performed, but flows from the understanding meditation cultivates, the direct experience of interconnection. Wisdom appears when knowing steps aside. The mind that knows too much can miss what is actually present, filtering perception through accumulated beliefs and concepts. Wisdom in Zen tradition is not accumulated knowledge, but direct seeing, the ability to perceive clearly without the distortion of fixed ideas. This wisdom emerges when you set aside certainty, admit you do not know, create space for fresh perception. The not-knowing mind is open, available to learn, receptive to what appears rather than imposing interpretation. This is why Zen values beginner's mind and questions expertise that is hardened into assumption. Wisdom sees what is rather than what should be, responds to actual situation rather than remembered patterns, and this requires letting go of knowing. The paradox is that true wisdom often looks like not knowing, the ability to say, "I'm not sure," and mean it, to hold uncertainty without anxiety, to wait for understanding rather than forcing conclusions. When knowing steps aside, a different kind of intelligence can operate, one that responds to reality directly rather than through the filter of accumulated concepts. Everything changes, except the fact of change. Impermanence is one of the fundamental insights Buddhism teaches and Zen emphasizes. Everything conditioned arises and passes. Nothing lasts. Change is the only constant. Understanding this intellectually is easy. Living it fully is transformative. When you truly see impermanence, not just believe it, but perceive it directly in each moment, relationships shift, priorities reorder, gratitude deepens. You stop taking things for granted because you see they will not last. You appreciate what is here now because you know it is changing. You let go more easily because you see that holding on does not stop change. This teaching is not depressing, but liberating. If everything changes, then nothing is stuck. No matter how difficult the current situation, it will transform. Your pain will change. Your joy will change. Your thoughts and feelings will change. And in that constant flux is freedom from the illusion of permanence. The only thing that does not change is change itself. And making peace with this fact is making peace with reality as it actually is. The path you walk is walked by walking. There is no path that exists before you step on it. The way appears as you move, each step creating the path that did not exist until taken. This teaching addresses the tendency to wait for clarity before beginning, to want the whole journey mapped before taking the first step. Zen suggests you start where you are, take the step available to you, trust that the next step will become clear when you reach it. The path is not separate from the walking. Practice is not separate from enlightenment. The journey and the destination are not two different things, but one continuous movement. When you walk, you are already on the path, already practicing, already expressing Buddha nature, even when you do not feel enlightened. This removes the excuse that you are not ready, that you need to prepare more, that someday when conditions are right, you will begin. The conditions are always now. The path is always beneath your feet, and walking itself is the practice. You do not need to know where it leads to take the next step, and taking that step is often enough. No teacher can give what you already hold. Teachers can point, guide, encourage, create conditions, but they cannot hand you enlightenment like passing an object. What you seek is already within you, already your fundamental nature, and the teacher's role is to help you recognize this, rather than to give you something new. This teaching prevents the dependency that can develop in student-teacher relationships, the belief that the teacher has something you lack and must bestow it. Zen emphasizes that transmission is recognition, the teacher confirming what the student has realized, not transferring something the student does not possess. The teacher is mirror showing you yourself, finger pointing at moon, you must see yourself. Ferryman helping you cross, but not able to cross for you. This makes the practice necessarily personal and solitary. Even when done in community, no one can do it for you. No one can see for you. No one can understand for you. The teacher can create optimal conditions and offer guidance based on their own experience. But the actual work, the actual seeing, must be yours. Return to ordinary life as extraordinary. After years of practice, after insights and breakthroughs and gradual understanding, you return to the same life you left, washing dishes, going to work, having conversations, but your relationship to these ordinary activities has transformed. What once seemed mundane now appears sacred. What you took for granted now invites wonder. What you rushed through unconsciously now receives your full attention. This is the completion of the journey, not escape from ordinary life, but return to it with eyes opened, seeing the extraordinary nature of the ordinary. The dishes are still dishes, work is still work, but you meet them with presence and appreciation, no longer waiting for life to begin elsewhere or later. The sacred is not somewhere else in special moments or special places, but here in the simple activities you once dismissed. This teaching prevents spirituality from becoming escapism, from seeking transcendence that leaves the world behind. Zen returns you to the world more fully engaged, more present, more appreciative of the simple fact of existence that you once overlooked in your search for something more. Just this, just this, just this. This phrase captures the essence of Zen practice, the complete attention to what is here now without addition or subtraction. Not this plus hope for something better. Not this minus the parts you dislike, but this exactly as it is, complete and sufficient. The repetition emphasizes the simplicity and directness. Just this breath, just this step, just this moment, nothing more needed. This teaching cuts through the mind's tendency to elaborate, to add commentary, to want something different or additional. Just this is invitation to presence so complete that nothing remains outside it, attention so whole that the one attending and the object attended dissolve into single experience. In that simple direct meeting with reality, the complexity falls away, and what remains is clear, immediate, sufficient. The phrase can be used as practice, silently repeating just this as you wash dishes, walk, sit, eat, reminding yourself to return attention to immediate experience without the overlay of judgment and preference. In the end, practice comes down to this simplicity. Just this moment, just this breath, just this exactly as it is. Nothing to add, nothing to remove. Complete. As we come to the end of this gentle journey through Zen wisdom, it feels right to pause and notice how far we have wandered together. We began with simple foundations, the cushion and the breath, the posture and the stillness, learning that practice starts with showing up and sitting down. We explored paradoxes that confound the thinking mind, discovering that seeking pushes away what we seek, that emptiness and form are not opposites, but different ways of seeing the same reality. We met the teachers who carried this tradition across centuries and oceans, from Bodhidharma facing his wall to Thich Nhat Hanh washing dishes, each one finding their own way to express the inexpressible. We wandered through gardens where rocks rest in raked gravel, witnessed tea ceremonies where every gesture becomes meditation, saw how ordinary work transforms when met with full attention. And finally, we circled back to where we started, recognizing that peace was never lost, that the journey brought us home to what was always present. These teachings share a common thread beneath their different expressions. They all point toward presence, toward meeting this moment as it actually is rather than as we wish it to be. They suggest that wisdom is not accumulation but subtraction, not gaining knowledge, but releasing the beliefs that obscure clear seeing. They demonstrate that the sacred is not separate from the ordinary, but discovered within it, that enlightenment is not escape from life, but complete engagement with it. Whether expressed through paradoxical koans or simple instructions to wash your bowl, whether embodied in formal meditation or informal presence, the teaching remains consistent, Be here now, see clearly, let go gently, and discover that what you sought was closer than you imagined. If you have enjoyed this gentle exploration of Zen wisdom, you are welcome to like, subscribe, or share a quiet thought below. It helps others find their way here too, and your support allows these journeys to continue. If you are still awake, another video waits on your screen, ready to accompany you further into rest and quiet learning. But for now, there is nowhere else to go and nothing left to understand. Let these teachings settle like snow, soft and quiet, covering the landscape of your mind with gentle white silence. You do not need to remember any of this. The wisdom is not in the words, but in the stillness they point toward. Let your thoughts slow like a river entering winter. Let your breathing deepen like roots reaching into dark earth. Let your awareness expand like sky holding clouds that come and go without effort or concern. The cushion releases you. The breath continues on its own, and you are held in the same quiet that holds mountains and streams and everything that rises and falls in this vast, patient world. There is nothing to achieve, nowhere to arrive, no one you need to become. Just this moment, just this breath, just this gentle settling into rest that was always available, always waiting, always here. Sleep well and good night.